and welcome back to She's in Business TV Live. Today I have some very special guest speakers. They are from the Outspoken Agency, and they're going to talk to us about how to elevate your brand through public speaking. Now, these are three female founders, and I'm so excited to not only hear more about public speaking, how to really position your brand as this authority figure, but also how they work together as a team, because I know so many of us dream of having a business partner that we can vibe with and we can enjoy growing a business with, so I can't wait to hear it. We're gonna roll the intro and we'll be back with Outspoken in just a moment. Hello, Caitie, Tara, and Tori. How are you doing?
Hello.
Great. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
Welcome to the show. I am so excited because this is like the first time that we've had three guests on at the same time. So I'm really interested to have a good time and hear everything that you guys have to share with our audience. If you guys can start by just telling me, and maybe Caitlin, who is the big boss lady I hear, you know all the things, tell us kind of about how Outspoken got started, how you guys joined forces, and more about the agency as a whole.
Sure. So we launched the business in 2016, and the three of us met as colleagues at another agency.
Cool.
And we started off as friends. It was, we were outside of work. We did everything together and hung out and just had a really amazing friendship. And that was truly the foundation of the company. And through the last 6 years, that foundation has been what has kept us together through so many ups and downs and all of the hardships that any founders face in launching a business. We decided that we wanted to do something a little bit different in the industry. Back then, things have changed for the better since then, but there's still progress to be made. But back then, the industry was pretty archaic. There was not representation on stages. There was a huge gap in representation of women, representation of people of color, and we really felt that needed to change. And so part of what we set out to do was to represent the underrepresented and help to promote them and their voices and get their messages on the stages that we felt needed them very badly. And then we also felt that there was some changes within the industry that we wanted to try to be a force for good and turn them around. Transparency and visibility. So those were that we saw a lot of room for growth, and we decided to leave the company that we were at and take the plunge and start something of our own. And I will say, I'll add one more thing. The other huge catalyst to doing this was that there was a very clear differentiation of talents between the three of us. We have very, very distinctive personalities and capabilities, and they all complemented each other, and they're all things that we felt are crucial to launch a successful business. And so it couldn't be done without the three of us, because we all brought those things to the table as individuals. So that was the most exciting thing about it, I think, for me, because I knew that there were things that I would never be able to be successful without their help. And I needed their talents, and they needed my talent, and it was all about the three of us coming together.
I think that's so powerful in entrepreneurship, especially in that first 10 years where like you're figuring out, where am I really strong? Where am I weak? Who do I need to bring in to really strengthen the company as a whole, and be surrounded by people who are smarter or just as smart as me, but in other areas. And so it's really cool that you guys had that from the start and got to figure it out and build from there. I mean, it puts you light years ahead of so many of us who sometimes are still figuring that out many years later. I'm interested to hear how you guys finally decided to kind of make that jump. Like, okay, we're gonna do it, what that was like, how were you feeling about it? Because I know that many of our audience members they're in a successful career, they're in an agency, or they work corporate or C-suite, and that it's that big jump. They dream about it, you know, they plan for it, they do all the right things to get ready for it, but actually making the jump to like, hey, we're doing it, we're going on our own. I'm interested to hear what you guys were feeling during that time and how you actually made the decision.
Well, the short story is that we were up in the country at a weekend away and got really drunk on wine and sat in a fire and we're bitching about our boss and basically said, you know what, let's stop talking and let's do something about it. We're not, this is never going to change. And so let's change it ourselves. And so that weekend, the idea was launched and we put it into motion pretty quickly. And I would say about 4 months later, we launched Outspoken.
So you guys, I mean, you just went for it. I really I love that. I think that that's the best way to do it. You just kind of gotta jump.
I mean, it was terrifying. Don't get me wrong. It was terrifying. We were all terrified.
Well, I like that you guys had each other to lean on. I'm wondering what it's like to launch with other female founders at your side. What are like some of the complexities of it, some of the like really great parts of it, things that, because not many people have had that experience where they've gotten to really start with other female founders around them. It's kind of like a lonely gig for a lot of us who are doing it solo. So I'm interested to kind of hear how those dynamics work and what you've gained from it and learned from it so far.
I think that there's something about working with other women who you trust, who you respect, and who you become like family, right? So you understand their their vulnerabilities and they know yours. And I think that because of there's a different level of openness with regards to our vulnerabilities, and I think that we try to help each other through moments that we know that are going to be harder for the other person when we feel we're in our strength and vice versa. And I think that that's a level of empathy that you develop as you work closely with people that you really care about, and not to be, not to make this a woman thing, but I do think that there's just an inherent empathy that you lead with when when you understand, you have a better understanding of the shoes that someone is walking in and the hardships that they've faced up to that point as a woman in business, as an entrepreneur, female entrepreneur in business, and things like that.
I agree. I mean, I always say that, it doesn't, we're not asking for special treatment. However, we have different, for many of us, different stories and different dynamics of just kind of our lives, just as female business owners. And I find that being around other people who have those similar stories and experiences is really empowering and kind of, it's comforting to know that other people have some of the same struggles. And so I love that you guys got to do that together. And I'm interested, was the agency before, did you guys do public speaking as well, or was it in communications, or what was it before? And I'm interested in hearing from Tara specifically, just kind of about public speaking in general and how you guys got into that niche and kind of what is so awesome about being a public speaker.
And yeah, to answer your first question, it was a public speaking agency. It's all I've ever done. And just back to your former question, when you were talking about having female founders around when you start your own business, I actually owned my own agency in Canada, and I was doing it all by myself, and it was horrible. I am so grateful to have two founders alongside me. These gals are my family. And yeah, so the industry, I recently heard a quote at a conference we were at of all speaker agencies, and they said, most people live and die without even knowing that our job exists. So it's definitely one that is not a popular job, but it's definitely a cool one. And I can talk a bit about sort of why your audience might want to become a public speaker and sort of why you think it's good to do so, if that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think many of our folks do dream about it, but they almost feel like, oh, they have to be giant keynote speaker. It seems kind of far away from where they could go. They seem it's like kind of a pipe dream, like one day I'll do that. So I'm interested to hear how people get into it, kind of how it's a big benefit, and what people can expect from that from the journey.
For sure. So what we really look for is someone whose day-to-day work and messaging is surrounding, something that's helping people, or is going to make the world a better place. I know that sounds cheesy, but that's sort of the criteria that we look for in speakers. And so, I mean, I think there's a lot of women doing that kind of work on a day-to-day basis. And I'm hopeful that the era of booking mountain climber speakers has ended, because I really believe that audiences are craving, a speaker who is authentic, smart, and genuinely motivated to make people's lives better. In terms of starting into this industry, I think it's really important to do pro bono events and get out there whenever you can and spread your message and make sure that you're confident in what that messaging is, and making sure it's unique from other speakers, and really getting down your presentation. And once you do that, I think you start to get requests for paid speaking engagements. Um, but I think the more you do, the better you get at it. And word of mouth is really big in this industry as well.
And so, for people who are just starting, I'm interested to hear from Caitie. What's the pathway of, I've never done a public speaking gig, I want to start, I know that, I know I can really make an impact, I know I can make a difference, I'm ready for it. How do they get started if they're really starting from zero? They've never had any exposure, never been on stage, never done anything. Where would they want to start? What would be the first couple of steps that they'd want to step into?
I would say that the first and most important component is to find your message. What's your, to sound like Simon Sinek, what's your why? Why are you doing this? What is the point? What's your message that needs to be heard? And then from that, you can identify the groups that are going to be the most sort of the lowest hanging fruit, if you will. Who will be your foundational people that are going to want to hear this message, be most ready to hear this message, and then get into those arenas in some capacity, whether they're online mothers groups or some sort of business group. And those kinds of groups host events constantly, whether live or virtual. And you take the approach of a touring garage band, right? You're out there and you're getting yourself in front of eyeballs and building your foundation of supporters. And much of that is done through free speaking engagements. And but I think the one thing that people sort of can lose throughout the process is the first step, which is the most important, which is the message. What is it? And if once you find out what that message is, your ability to figure out who the people are is that much easier, because you can match the people to the message.
Mm-hmm.
I love that the message has to be first and foremost. If you don't have that figured out, it's really hard to get up on stage and kind of put the
it sounds very basic, but a lot of it's something that I think a lot of people lose sight of pretty quickly when it comes to wanting to become a speaker. It's like, okay, that's great, but let's talk about the speaking component first.
Absolutely. I wonder about, because public relations speaking is before COVID, I was doing a lot of work on it, and then COVID kind of slowed me down. And so what I was learning though in that process of trying to prepare, what is my message, where do I want to speak, where do I want to go with this, how do I want to use speaking for myself and my business, I started finding that there was some power in reaching out and tapping into the networks that I already had that were actually surprising. I wonder, Tori, do you guys have recommendations for people who are looking for those first opportunities or looking for ways to get into this in their existing networks already? People who are already around them that might be able to support them, and how would they approach that?
Yeah, you can essentially look at all of your life milestones and kind of backtrack and then also move forward with those. What is happening in your local community, whether that's a church group, a leadership group, are you a member of a women's group? What do your alma maters at your high school or your university do? Consistently, programs within schools have speakers coming in to talk about different topics related to student needs and things that they're going to be preparing for as they graduate. And you have a level of expertise that they haven't experienced yet. So you can look to those kinds of places that you've already been through those programs, and go ahead and share what you've learned, because those personalized experiences are really going to help those audiences grow and succeed as well. And then beyond that, it can be awkward at times for people to tap into their professional network and their family and friends to vet and find these kinds of speaking events. But you might find that your friends have lunch and learns, maybe virtual or in person, at their companies. And you can use that time, as Caitie and Tara said, to practice your messaging, get those engaged reactions with the audience, and then continue to move that message along with other ways of delivering that, and then fine tune it. And then you find that you're becoming more ready to go into that paid component of speaking.
So, and that's kind of what I'm always managing the expectation of how a speaking career should go. And I know it's going to be different, but when you're talking to your clients, and any of you can answer this, or all of you, how do you manage the expectation of short-term gain, long-term gain, when things would move to paid speaking? What should people expect if they're starting from scratch? Because I think a lot of people think they'll do a couple speaking gigs, then they're going to be hired for $100,000 keynotes, or they have these expectations that might not be realistic. So I'm interested to hear what's a realistic expectation for somebody just starting.
It's a long game. I mean, there is a lot of impatience, both from our side in terms of finding events for our speakers and for the speakers themselves as they build this career. And you really have to think long term, just as you would in building your professional brand and your business. It takes a lot of time in thinking about your unique selling proposition. Think about the competition within your own business and your own industry, and what other people are doing, and how do you make yourself unique and build upon that. And so you have to level up, show your expertise, find how you make yourself different, and be patient, because your expertise, while it might be relevant day to day within your industry, the speaking world and those that would be inviting you to events might not need you, or might not know that they need you in the moment when you are being pitched or you're pitching yourself. So you have to just find the right time and wait it out until that moment springs on itself, and do everything you can as you would to build your brand, to build your personal brand by showing that you're a leader in an industry or multiple subsets, and being involved in publications, being a talking head on podcasts, writing blogs, being active on social media. All of these things play into a long-term speaking career, and that trajectory just takes some time. Some people kind of skip several steps, but they're often lucky, and they often spend a lot of money and energy to build that up in a shorter amount of time. So more often than not everyone is able to do that in such a short amount of time.
I also, I heard you use the word pitch. I find that a lot of people I don't know if they think that like speaking opportunities are just going to like come across their desk and then they're just going to be invited. And when you talk about, you've got to pitch opportunities, it might be small, it might be large, but you have to pitch. Can and whoever wants to jump in on this, talk a little bit about what is pitching when it comes to public relations, when it comes to getting speaking engagements. What should people be looking to develop for their own pitch, and how really that works if somebody's kind of new to this?
I would say first and foremost, the thing that we tell all of our speakers, and most of them, by the time they're working with us, they've already developed all these things. But a website is sort of the basic number one thing you need to have as your storefront to promote yourself and to, by just a click, introduce your message, introduce your expertise. So that's a number one. Video footage is number two. Any sort of high quality video footage of you on stage or you doing your thing is crucial to the pitching part of the process, because you need to demonstrate your talent somehow, and video is the best way to do it. Any sort of accolades that you can pull together, whether it's press or just all of anything that backs up your stake in this arena, and doubles down on you as the authority or an authority in the space. Those are all very important, because you're trying to what we are doing with our speakers every day when we are pitching them, which is what we do. Our job is to demonstrate to the other person that this person is going to bring something to the table that is not at the table yet, and they are an expert in this field, and so that's why they're the qualified person to do this. So whatever tools you can pull together to do that, those are the things that need to be used.
And should people be reaching out to opportunities? Should they be like in a speakers bureau? When you guys are pitching people, are you using your connections? I guess I always wonder, like, where do people really find these kinds of opportunities, and what steps do they need to take to secure them if they don't have somebody amazing like your team who kind of knows the ins and outs? What are they looking for?
Well, you'll see on a lot of conference websites. Sorry, Tara, do you want to take this one?
No, please.
A lot, not all, but a lot of conference websites will have call for speakers, and these calls for speakers are typically for unpaid positions within the conference, and that are asking for specific expertise or specific messages. And so, folks that I think are starting out, and if their message is relevant to a specific type of industry, then they'll want to go and look at what conferences are happening within that industry or for that industry, and see what kinds of calls for speakers are out there on websites. And like I said, those are typically those are unpaid slots or slots on panels and things like that. But that's the starting point. That's where you start.
Yeah, and I think another good way for speakers to start is to find someone that you admire. Try to be realistic about it, but someone who is getting paid speaking engagements, and see where they're speaking, and then pitch yourself to them. And again, you're not going to look Brene Brown probably at this point in your career, but yeah, be realistic and find those people, and that's how we prospect a lot of our leads, actually.
Now, I always say that there's a lot of things you can DIY, but most things when it comes to marketing, public relations, speaking, certain admin stuff, it's just really better sometimes to hire it out. There's a level of experience and connections and just knowing what to do, where to do it, how to do it, that's really helpful to bring somebody on who actually knows what they're doing. And a lot of times it seems more expensive immediately, but in the long run, you're getting more opportunities. You're spending less time trying to figure it out on your own, and you can get to your goals a lot faster. So I'm interested to hear about what, as an agency, y'all do, how that works. Most people, again, they might have even known that somebody could book speaking gigs for them, but they didn't know there were whole agencies and teams who could basically handle different facets of the process. So can you tell me more about what you guys do on a day-to-day basis for your clients?
Sure. So first and foremost, just to set expectations for the speakers out there who want to be represented by an agency, we are looking for speakers who are already fairly busy and getting paid. About $5,000 a gig is kind of the minimum that we're looking at. Just because there is a lot of legwork that goes into building a speaker, and yeah, we just want them to be somewhat developed. In terms of what we do on a day-to-day basis, we have a database of thousands of clients, and we're constantly sending emails, cold calling them, or just touching base with clients we've worked with before, sending them reminders of when we know they're planning. And then after that, we send them pitches for our speakers of people that we think would be wonderful for their conference or event. In addition to that, we do marketing. We send blasts to this database. We do social media on behalf of our speakers on our own social media. Just to be clear, we don't do our speakers' social media for them. We then handle logistics such as travel, money, invoicing, contracting, all of those things. And then we also handle all of our speakers' incoming requests that come in for them. So we negotiate all the money. And yeah, we're the touch point for everything.
So it's pretty much turnkey with the pieces of the logistics of their speaking opportunities and career generally. So, and a person who's at like 5,000 a speaking opportunity, how long have they been usually doing it? Where are they at? Give me some context of somebody who's making 5,000.
I'll take it.
Yeah. Difficult to answer that, to be honest. But so go ahead, Caitie.
So it is an interesting question because every speaking engagement is different, right? And there are a lot of speakers who are, their goal, well, actually, we really only work with speakers whose goals are not exclusively monetary, right? So, their decision to take a speaking engagement isn't driven by how much money it is. I mean, of course, that's a big part of the process, but it's not the one and only component that goes into the thought process. So there are speakers that consistently get paid $25,000, $35,000, $40,000 for a speech, but will turn around and do a $5,000 gig tomorrow for an abundance of reasons. The audience is really important to their message. They have a soft spot in their heart for the particular nonprofit or what have you. So I think there is this level of fluidity that exists in this industry because every speaking engagement is different. In terms of, to answer your direct question, in terms of how long it takes to get to be a $5,000 speaker, there is no one answer or one timeline. I think someone can get paid once in $5,000 and they call themselves a $5,000 speaker, but then they might turn around and not get that offer again for a year, right? So it's so from our perspective, yes, we need to be working with speakers that are at a certain point for the work that we do to make sense, but speakers also have most of the speakers that we work with have a flexible mindset when it comes to the financial component because their end game is about exposure. Their end game is about visibility, and the financial component is important, but it's not the whole thing. Most people are speaking for a couple of years at least before they're getting paid $5,000, 2 to 3 years at least.
So like you said, it's a long game. You got to be in it to win it for the long term.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're using that time with those pro bono or local events to build your CV of speaking. So you're able to substantiate why you should get paid that $5,000 or more at a certain point in your speaking development career, because you've essentially had all this practice and this experience doing things. And as you're using, as Tara suggested, another speaker that might be ideal for you, or maybe you have a connection to them and you understand that they are a paid speaker, as you're using that jumping off point to explore and research your own opportunities, then you understand that those are the kinds of people who likely have a budget, and you can start to experiment your ask for your fee. And that's a great time to learn what the client will respond with, what the ask might turn out to be. And there may be some negotiations, but it's a perfect time to see what your value in the marketplace is.
Yeah. And by the way, you can
The other part I will
Sorry.
add is just one more thing. I just want to say to Tori's point, you know, when you're building that CV, your speaker resume, you don't, you know, and a lot of that will in the beginning involve a lot of pro bono events. But, you know, if you're going to speak at Google or Facebook or, you know, or Chase Bank for free, you're putting that on your website to let people know you've spoken there. You don't have to tell them you did it for free. You know,
Very
that's
true.
you've spoken there. And that's part of the game, right? That's part of what it's the fake it till you make it. And we all know that that's a real thing.
Yeah.
And it's not faking it because you did speak there. And you have to start somewhere.
And I was just going to add, you can skip all of these steps if you write a #1 New York Times bestselling book. And if that happens, just please give us a call.
That's the route
We
I'm going to
will.
go. That's the route I'm going to go, I think.
I think it's straightforward. Just make it happen.
Well, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Are there other things? So, you know, you can do different speaking gigs, really show those off on your website, show yourself speaking, show yourself, hey, I'm the expert and I know, you know, what I'm talking about. Are there other things people can do to kind of build that credibility while they're kind of just trying to build that clout? Are there, I mean, I always joked about the, you know, best-selling, you know, New York Times book, but like, can they write a book? Would that even be helpful? What are some other things they might be able to do to start building that credibility?
Do you want me to take this,
100%.
ladies?
Yeah, please
Okay.
do, Tori. You're the expert for sure.
Sorry, thank you. I would say anything that is a physical takeaway or something you can access on a device is helpful sales tools. So whether it's being interviewed on a podcast, starting your own podcast, keeping a blog on your website that you are maintaining as your personal brand and building your speaking career, writing a book, even if it's self-published. And it's amazing how many of these companies are out there to help you develop these tools and these physical, whether digital or literally physical components that you can use as sales tools for you now. You can hire a company to create a podcast for you, start to slowly build out who your listeners might be or your followers, self-publish a book, and then you're only printing what people are purchasing. There's this access that people never had even as much 6 years ago before we started our business. So any kind of ways you can keep in the conversation, that's exactly how you maintain your relevance, and start to build that brand, so that whether you want to get the attention of an agency or you want to get the attention of a client hiring you to speak, those all are important to that point.
I love, it's kind of like you just have to do a lot of different things that can keep moving forward and put your best,
Experiment.
You know, your best foot, right. See what's going to work. It's like marketing.
Yeah.
Like we do a lot of the, you know, the marketing trainings and things. You just got to try it, see if it works, see if it sticks, trust it will, cross your fingers and keep going at it. So I love that. And so, okay, so people can build their website, they can do other things to build their credibility and really start to contribute to this like portfolio of work over time. They can get an agency, they can do pitches, they can show up online. But how does somebody know if they're really meant for speaking? Other than they have a good message, they have a powerful message. How does somebody know, like, yeah, I would be good at public speaking, or this is something that I could realistically pursue and get some traction on in the next few years? Is there kind of like a magic way to like figure out, like, yeah, I'd be good at this?
No,
I would say it's trial and error. Yeah, I mean,
I think
you're
feedback. I think
testing.
the people
Yeah.
around you are going to tell you.
Yeah, and some
Hopefully.
people kind of force themselves, I think, into speaking because they are the leader of a business or of a nonprofit, or maybe they're in academics and they wrote a book that kind of went beyond their expectations of success. And so they're invited and kind of forced into situations where they're doing public engagements. And so some people don't want to do it and end up doing it, and you balance their introvertedness with the extroverted expectations of being a public facing intellectual and thought leader. But for those who are really passionate about it, I think as long as you're honing your skills and being receptive to feedback, you just help develop yourself there. You might be crushed with some of those responses to your first couple gigs, but as long as you're willing to put in the work to develop yourself, I think that is a great way to set yourself up for success.
It's like you don't know till you do it, and you got to do it a lot. You got to be bad at something for a while before you can be good at it, you know?
Exactly.
It's so true.
And I think, Caitie, you had mentioned kind of at the beginning, and maybe I think this is what you were getting at, just this kind of wanting to make significant changes in the way the industry is or the way the industry functions. Do you mean in terms of diversity, women's stories? What have you guys been looking at in the long term to really change in terms of how the industry works?
I think first and foremost, it is about diversity on stages. You know, basically, there was a long period of time, basically the history of conferences and events and speaking appearances, where 99% of the folks you see on stage are cis white men. And that is something that, you know, when you look at a population that is not cis white men, you know, there's a huge discrepancy, and that's a problem. Things have changed a lot. They really have, but there's a lot of room for growth still. And for us, one speaker at a time, one speech at a time. It's small, in small changes, but they're changes. We feel and felt when we launched that we, by supporting these underrepresented voices, that we were making our mark towards progress and change, however small it might be, but every bit counts. And I think that a lot of folks are in agreement with us in our industry and are starting to make their own changes as well. And it's a beautiful thing to see. And there's still more work to be done, but yes, it was first and foremost about representation on stages.
I love that people are out there really focusing on that, because it's true. I mean, a lot of conferences are mostly cis white men, and it's just really, it's great to see everyone represented in a way that's authentic and genuine and representative of how we all live our lives. And having all people of different walks of life also gives us different insight into the different issues that we're there to learn about. And I love to hear other perspectives from people who are different than me, as well as fellow women who I want to hear their stories, even if they're different or the same, and so I can relate to them. What are the big goals for the new year? what are the big goals for the agency as a whole and just for your clients? Are there any big trends we should know about? What are you guys feeling like for the new year?
Well, I would say the trends are an interesting one. There are always new trends, and of course, you know, the pandemic created this whole new ecosystem of trends in terms of topics related to the workplace, topics related to DEI, that has and will continue to be front and center. Um, but and then I think that the acclimation to the new work world is, and various topics related to that are definitely things that we're seeing continued in terms of topic trends. Um, and in terms of our goals, we're really focused on growing our speakers. We just signed a bunch of new female speakers. We launched a sort of new arm to our business that is hyper focused on women, and our goals are to promote this small group of women and really get them out there this year in 2023, and hopefully double down on all of the work they're already doing, and which in turn will help grow the company.
It's funny how we actually found y'all a while back was looking into different, mid-level influencers, thought leaders at different levels, and we kept seeing your agency listed for their media contact. And that's how you all got on our radar probably a year or two ago. So you are making,
That's
you were that
amazing.
noticeable that we kept seeing, we kept seeing the Outspoken on there. So you guys are really making an impact. I know it can be tough when you're a business owner to see the big picture, but we see the good work that you're doing and the impact that you're making for women experts who are wanting to get out there and really get their message heard. Anything that we didn't cover that y'all want to talk about, that you all want people to hear about when it comes to public speaking, when it comes to working with an agency, anything that you all feel like you really want to have heard?
I would just say to any women out there that are really eager to figure out whether this is for them or whether they have what it takes, to just try. Just take the leap and try. And it's going to be very hard and very scary, but you'll find out really quickly if this is something that's right for you. And but you won't know if you don't try. And we need more female voices on all fronts, in all categories, on all topics, not just voices that are talking about DEI related issues, but female experts in all fields. And I think that that's one way for us to help make the change that we're trying to make, is to encourage women to feel empowered to raise their hand and answer the question and talk first.
I love it. And how can folks find you all? How can they, if they feel like they are in a good place to work with your agency, or they just kind of want to follow along and see what y'all are up to, how can they connect with you?
The best would be through our website, outspokenagency.com. That all the contact information is there, our email, everything you need. If anyone wants to connect with us, we're there.
All right, well, ladies, thank you so much for coming on. I hope that you will join us anytime you've got new launches coming up, any new cool stuff you have going on, any changes in the industry that our folks should know about. We'd love to have you back on.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Would love to come back on. Thank you so much,
great.
Kate. This is so fun.
All right, thanks so much, ladies. All right, that was the Outspoken Agency, and I really love that conversation. It's really inspiring me to actually talk more about public speaking or think more about it. It's something that you have to work towards and develop, and we've heard so many great tips on how to do that and how to think about a speaking career, whether it's for pay, whether it's just for your business, whether it's just to get out there and get your message out there. So hopefully it inspired all of you as well. Thanks again to Outspoken Agency for coming on and talking to us today. If any of you would like to join the She's in Business community, we'd love to have you come over. We're doing an entire platform expansion for the new year, which includes SIB TV, our Netflix-style masterclasses from business experts everywhere, as well as our entire networking platform, and as well as our CRM and business management tool. Come over to the She's in Business Facebook group, come see us, come connect with us, and get involved, because when one of us rises, we all rise. Thanks for tuning in.